Hey folks, today's coding interview question for DevOps has to do with Kubernetes and YAML files. So here's what we have to do. If you like the content I create, please subscribe. That helps my channel, and I really appreciate it. So today we have to create a persistent volume with the following parameters. The key here is we're going to use kubectl explain to explore the API parameters for persistent volume, because persistent volume is probably one of the worst documented items in Kubernetes, and it's kind of pain in the rear to configure in the YAML file. That's why we have to use kubectl explain and the Kubernetes extension in VS Code to help us out. Unfortunately, you can't use the second one, the extension in VS Code, for your in case Kubernetes certification exams, but that's not what this is about. Today's question is about a coding interview for DevOps role, so we're allowed to use those two things. The key here is to understand this command to figure out what goes into the YAML file in what format, because that's what's going to trip us up. So the point here is to know how to use this command. So let's get started. So here's my VS Code, and I have this YAML file which is blank. So all YAML files start with, I don't know why it's complaining about that. Configure, nope, don't want to do any of that. Anyway, so starts with API version, and I believe it's something like v1 or v1 maybe. No, I think it's small v. And then we do kind is persistent. This is where, well, let me show you this first of all. In extensions, if we put in Kubernetes, you will see this one here that's used by a whole bunch of people. This is the one that's going to pop up first anyway. So you install that, and then that will help you with the writing of this. Let's go back to the file. That's what's giving us this little help here. So if we start typing persistent, it says, what do you want to create? Do you want to create persistent volume claim, or what have you? So, and as soon as you do that, it gives you an example, which is fantastic. Gives you a name. I'm going to change the name because I already used to practice this. I already used one called myPV, so I'm going to say myPV2. And you see how it's complaining about that? That's because the API version is in there twice. So I'm going to take that out. That's the name, capacity. Now here's where we're going to use the kubectl explain command, okay? Because we don't know what to put in here. So our spec says we're going to use 10 megabytes, very small one, right? So what you do is you do kubectl explain, and it tells you, hey, you got to give me something. You can't just give me no item. So we can use PV, which is a short form for persistent volume. Otherwise, you have to type the whole thing out. It gives you the next level key value, I guess. So here, you see how there's spec and metadata. It gives you metadata and spec. So this is under spec. So we do, okay, next we do pv.spec. And now it's giving you a whole bunch of stuff. Now, we know next is capacity, so we're going to say capacity. And it gives you a whole bunch of explanations of how to do this. But essentially what it is megabytes, big megabytes and whatnot, 1,000 versus 1024, whatnot. But the idea is, if I look at this, in fact, there should be some examples. Example 1.5 will be serialized as that, blah, 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 blah. Here's 1.5 GI. So we could put something like 10, and you see the units here are explained here, K, M, all that. So we'll just say capital M, for that matter. And it took it. It didn't complain anymore. Volume mode file system, that's fine. Read write once, that's fine. It doesn't matter for our exercise. All this is fine, no problem. Now, these we don't need because this has to do with NFS and all that. We are using a local mount, okay? So now if we come here and say, okay, spec, we don't need capacity anymore. Just if we do a spec, it tells you all the other options underneath spec. And if I look hard enough, this local volume source, I think, and this host path. So I don't know what local actually means in this context, but I know host path means we're going to chunk out a little bit of disk from my Mac, which is the host, and create a volume from there that's of size 10 megabytes. So we say host path. Interestingly, it doesn't, maybe you got to go one down. I'm not sure. Now it likes it. I don't know why it's complaining about this. Show code action. Oh, I think that has to do with GitHub or something. I have GitHub Actions enabled. Maybe that's why I got this code in the beginning, not from the Kubernetes extension. So this, I believe, is coming from GitHub Copilot. So one thing that I forgot to mention that in the requirement, code extension and GitHub Copilot. Okay, so there's the change in the requirement because I'm actually using that. Okay, cool. So now we have that host path. Now again, we practice using this kubectl explain pb spec. Now we say host path, and now it's giving me a whole bunch of options here. But what we really want here, it's not giving us a whole lot of example, which is bad, but it gives you a path where it's all documented. So now you go to Chrome and you go into, by the way, my codes for Kubernetes stuff they're all here. If you go to my GitHub repo, Mamoon001, you can search for Kubernetes and you will in repos and it will end up here. So again, here's the URL, Mamoon001 Kubernetes Playground Mamoon, because I think somebody else already had the name Kubernetes Playground, so I had to use that. Anyway, that's where all the codes are for whatever I make videos on. Okay, so I am in the documentation place, which I got from kubectl explain, and it's giving me examples here. Volume bounds, host. What I'm looking for is a host path. So Command F, host path. Okay, hopefully there's a good example here. Host path, all the options, host path. Here we go. We need to give it a path and a type directory. So path. Let's go back to the code here. I think I clicking on stuff. So one level down, always two spaces with Mr. YAML here. We say path, and we say, in this case, it's going to be a directory under my home directory. So this is my directory. So I'm going to create that directory, make a directory /users. This is what we're going to mount inside Kubernetes. Users -Mamoon Kubernetes PB. I think I already have one, so I'm going to call it 2 this time. And we're going to copy that and put it here. This will be where the data will be written to. And remember, I also have to give it a type. In this case, it's going to be a directory. And it gives me that choice, which is awesome. I think that part came from Kubernetes extension. The code came from GitHub Copilot. Okay, so I don't think I have to do anything else. So let's give it a shot. Let's save that file. And we're going to say, let's look at this file first. Okay, explain. There's the file. I'm going to say kubectl apply -f /explain demo.yaml. Give me a warning, but it's still created. So if we do kubectl get pv persistent volumes, you see I have 2 of them. One when I practiced for this video, I made that, and then I made another one right now in front of you. That's my pv2. So that's the way to create persistent volume using Copilot, Kubernetes extension, and kubectl explained. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.